Hey friends, Abby with Journal of the Body here for another podcast episode. Today I get to interview she's become a really good internet friend of mine. Her name is Alannah Slingsby, and one is partially potentially the reason I am pregnant now. So shout out to Alannah. And then also I had just really hit it off with her when doing some work for the Health Institute. You may know her mom, Dr. Liegh Erin Connealy, from the Center for Healing, the Cancer Center for Healing, and then also the Center for New Medicine they have in Irvine. She also wrote The Cancer Revolution. So Alannah and her mom, Dr. Connealy, they work really closely together, pretty hand in hand. And Alannah is such an expert when it comes to hormones. She's such an expert when it comes to cancer as well. And those, hormonal biomarkers. She just speaks so well to such a wide variety of topics. So today we get into all sorts of really interesting things like early onset puberty. We talk a little bit about pap smears. We talk about just we hit so many things. I also talked with her about progesterone cream, which is one of the things that she had helped recommend me for fibrocystic breasts. And lo and behold, not only did it work, but I also ended up getting pregnant during that time. So yeah, we are just we go off on a tangent and it's a lot of fun, and we hit a lot of different topics really quickly. And she is also the creator of something called momenthealth.co. Moment Health is a new women's hormonal telehealth platform, and they're just really kind of doing some groundbreaking stuff. They're offering memberships along with hormone panels, which I would, again, give way to the fact that they're actually interpreting the testing accurately and giving really, really great insights to what your lab results mean. They're providing natural hormone solutions, personal lifestyle plans, and also lots of content. So I'm really excited for you guys to listen in today. It's probably one of my favorite episodes, just full of, fun banter and chock full of educational information. So enjoy. Hey friends, welcome to Journal of the Body podcast. My name is Abby Fernandini, and I'm joined with my really good internet friend, Alannah. She and I have DMs that have been going on for the past year, and honestly, most of the topics I think we're going to touch on have related to our DMs at some point. I also want to say she's partially responsible for potentially the reason why I got pregnant with Rodrigo after one try. So my girl gave me some great advice for breast fibroids that I had using progesterone topical cream for a couple weeks. And during that time, Rodrigo and I tried to get pregnant once, and here we are. I am now 5 months pregnant. So
we're going to tell your child this story. I hope
Yes, this is going to be, my child is absolutely going to know this story. It's going to be like, oh yeah, so mom got pregnant from progesterone cream.
Yeah, we do give that literally all the time. I send people this one study, which I can't, they took it off the internet. But I had screenshots of it, but it's the most underutilized substance for miscarriage. And so for when we give it to women, sorry to just jump in, but when we give it to women, we try to make sure they stay on it through the, obviously not you, if they're having trouble getting pregnant, to stay on it because it can help with preventing miscarriage. Yeah.
Well, I had a friend that had been trying to get pregnant, and I told her about the progesterone cream. Guess what? She's 2 weeks behind me now.
No way.
Yeah, she's 2 weeks behind me. And literally the day before, or it was the day before she literally conceived, she started it. So I was like, can it work in as little as 24 hours? Is that possible? I don't know. You might know better than me, but I was it technically is a hormone, so maybe it just
there's debate over that, how fast acting it is, but it's not too likely. But who knows? There's always a chance, I guess. But that's amazing.
Yeah. That was the only thing that I was gonna say, I was I basically used it through the entire I used it through the first 20 weeks because I was actually really scared that I was gonna have some issues with pregnancy stuff. And I think I had a little corpus luteum cyst, which is like super common that like dissolves after a period of time. And that was like the only thing that like I was like, oh, maybe I didn't need like as much progesterone, or I don't know how it works. But you probably know more than that.
Yeah. So
I was
for like,
so scared. I was
yeah,
like,
I know people get a little bit scared.
I was like, yeah.
But for the fibrocystic breasts, so when someone says like your breast is dense, like it's dense breast, that is actually collagen that's hardened. And I feel like people don't know what that actually is. It's hardened collagen, and it hardens because of estrogen's effects. So then it gets that hardened kind of feeling. And then when you apply the progesterone cream, some people don't think you should apply it to fatty areas, but it really does penetrate the tissue. And so it can help with the fibrocystic like density because it obviously counteracts estrogen. So a lot of people don't know that's actually collagen when they say it's dense breasts.
Yeah, that's I would have never known. To be honest, I just like kind of put it in the category of like some fibrous like tissue, which I guess is, that's like it's caused by estrogen dominance, and I've had some liver issues in the past, so I knew like for me like estrogen dominance like potentially could like be kind of a factor. And so I was like, okay, the progesterone thing makes so much sense. When you said it to me, I was like, oh, I'm connecting the dots now. This makes so much sense.
What brand did you end up getting? I can't remember.
Oh, it was like actually a good brand that I found on Amazon that had like a ton of reviews. I can link it. Like,
I'm always curious what people are using, because like we obviously we have our own progesterone cream, but even other people can use, I don't, as long as people are getting better, I don't, use
and I only used it for like a couple of weeks, and like it was like it was a radical difference. So I was like, oh, this is
for younger people, you tend to not need to use it long term.
Right. Doesn't it like create endogenous? Is the idea that it could potentially spark like endogenous progesterone production?
Exactly. Yeah.
People. And then like what for postmenopause, it's like better to use like, do you think like the longer term? Like what's your
It depends. Some people like to maintain that like cycle as long as possible. So they'll mimic like the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off of using it. But I know for my mom, you takes it every day because she feels better. So it's like if she just feels better, she's like, I'm just gonna take it every day. It's also protective. So it literally depends on the woman if she wants to like replicate the cycle, or if she just doesn't.
Right.
Or she wants to take it every day.
Is it protective against like blood clotting, etc.? Because my mom actually had a question, because she has like, we have deep vein thrombosis that runs in the family, and I feel like my mom needs progesterone. And like, again, she needs to do a full blood panel, probably with you guys. I'll send her your way, but she needs to do it. And I was thinking about the tendency towards like, I just feel like my mom and grandma both had fibrocystic breast tissue, and then it obviously like ran in the family, and when I get really stressed it comes for me, which is like obviously like a liver, anyway. But I was thinking about it with my mom, and I was like, Mom, like maybe you should try progesterone cream, like especially for like clotting and like other, again, the protective mechanisms.
She can also try a little aspirin for the blood clotting,
baby aspirin.
Like we use the Jerry Care brand. It just has cornstarch, and I mean, that's the only additive. I actually emailed them and I was like, can you confirm this is the only additive? And he was like, yes, I'm confirmed. It's just cornstarch, which isn't ideal, but like it's a little bit convenient just to get it on Amazon. It's called Jerry Care.
Oh, and for those of you listening, baby aspirin is actually one of the few things that I think Alannah and I can agree on that like makes sense, like for protective measures, especially like as you get older. It's like one of those few like quote unquote like medications that is proven to have way more like pros than cons. So it's not like a Tylenol. It's not like you're seeing a lot of these other like brands over the counter that you tend to like gravitate towards when you go to the pharmacy. It's like, no, this is something that you can actually take, and there's not like really any not any negative outcomes with it. So
I think some people have like, if they're really sensitive, they may feel like a little stomach issues, but I knew about it originally because my mom uses it for cancer and for like liver cancer and stuff. And so all the patients, like pretty much if you have cancer, they'll take aspirin, but also in the pro-metabolic community, it's like really popular. So it's like the confluence of those makes me I take it sometimes as like a, like, I don't know, just like, like mental, like
as a as like a preventative, like almost like every so often I'm just going to incorporate this. I do that too. I do a little guinea pigging with myself. Right now I'm doing like betaine, like hydrochloride, or what is it? Hydrochloride and Pepsi, because I've been having some like My stomach is all over the place. Pregnancy constipation is so real, guys.
Really?
So I've been like trying, yes, like I've been doing all the magnesium. So like as long as I'm really regular with that, I'm fine. But like definitely you just feel changes like physically, like there's just it just starts to like your
Right.
body
Well, your
like,
organs are
oh,
are like literally changing
moving.
size.
And I
Because they're
like
like, yeah, they have to like fit a baby.
for the first time ever, I'm like, I feel this like discomfort in like my stomach sometimes, or it just feels like way like smushed, or like my stomach acid maybe just like a tiny bit off. So I've been anecdotally adding it in.
That's so funny. That's
Okay,
so
I have a
funny.
question for you guys. So Alannah is a hormone expert, probably along with her mom. They're between the two of them. I think I'll go to them for every hormone related question I could possibly imagine. So they're 10 out of 10. Okay, so we got a lot of girls getting off of birth control right now. What are
Uh-huh.
the top like few suggestions that you have for girls and like women who are coming off of like a really long stint of birth control?
Yeah.
Curious
I
about
got asked this the other day. And I wrote like a highlight on my mom's account called Off the Pill for like more deep insight. But and also my friend Juliana Long on Twitter has a really good thread for like if you need to like look at it on the internet. But when someone asked me this, my first response was like find a way to be patient and like have mercy on the body and let things recalibrate. Because like a lot of times the body does need like just a break, and you know, we have to just trust that it's resilient and like wants to it does like it does side on the air, like it airs on the side of healing. And so we want to like just give it time, because sometimes people have like hair issues right when they
Mhm.
you know, take it. But a lot of times we will give progesterone if you want like a actual supplement. Yeah, because what most birth controls are progestin, which is based on the molecule testosterone. It's called LNG. They changed it a little bit and they like literally alter the molecule. And so it does have like androgenic effects, but it also can have estrogenic effects. And sometimes, you know, taking it may impact your progesterone levels. And that deficiency is actually like what we are worried about.
That's like what I'm pretty sure I had coming off of the like, well, I went from the pill, got off the pill like right as I was meeting Rodrigo, and then got like the copper IUD for a short amount of time and was like, wow, this is so not it for me. My body was like physically rejecting it.
Literally
And
same.
I was like, okay, so there's no great options right now. I'm just gonna cycle sync, which ended up like working out for the long run, like over the last few years. And yeah, but I'm pretty sure I was having some major, I don't know, progesterone imbalances with maybe estrogen based on like my personal symptoms and signs, or I don't know, maybe androgens. I didn't do enough blood testing, ladies.
Yeah, but you
Big.
gave it some time, right? And just like I'm gonna be patient with this, and you know,
Yeah.
with it goes without saying, but like eating well and going outside and being in nature can like resolve so much of these issues where we want like magic bullets, but really just like following the basics of health can just, you know,
Yeah.
step by step get us on that path.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. We have so many, I feel like I've talked to so many girls in the last couple of months that are all like, I'm coming off of birth control right now. I'm really scared of cycle syncing, but like I want to give it a try. Like, you know, and they're like, I'm
Mhm.
gonna use backup protection. But like once you kind of let your body like regulate, you can really start to understand when you're ovulating, and like you can even start to tell how many days like you're ovulating, and then it'll kind of align with like when you are using like, you know, for example, natural cycles. If you're using with
Mhm.
a ring or something like that, you start to kind of get into the
One
groove.
of the things I think is like deeply understudied is how connected the menstrual cycle is with the lunar cycle. So the moon cycle is 28 days, so is a menstrual cycle. And like a lot of marine animals are very their cycles are also dictated by the moon. I mean, the moon does like change the tide, so it
Right.
makes sense that the marine biology, but there's like a whole aspect that we often overlook. Oh, it's kind of like what we were talking about, how pine cones harvest early when they have but yeah, that is also like historically farming was
A
what
cyclical.
it was, yeah, it's connected with the moon because like full moons can encourage a more moist soil. So there's like a lot of, I guess, plant
Wow.
symbolism, but it's actually just like interconnected with how tethered us as women are to the earth. It's insane.
Yeah, it's got to do with gravitational pull. And
Mhm.
I've heard like even for like parasite cleansing, you hear like
You
cleanse
have to
with
do
the
it,
full
yeah.
moon, and it's like this whole concept that the gravitational pull is like somewhat changed, and I wonder if that's like
I know. And then you start to sound kind of like woo-woo, but
Yeah, you do. I mean, that's where we're at.
you do. But when you like understand that literally women's menstrual cycle is the same as as the moons, and that's actually why like honeymoons, like they wanted to correlate it with the full moons to encourage conception of like a new child and stuff. There's all this like well, because I've always been like really interested on like historical like medicine and like how things were done, like, and why they were done, like what was like what have we lost, like what was tradition like focused on, and strongly was trying to conceive around the moon cycle.
Oh my gosh. I would have never known the whole honeymoon thing. Like, I wonder if that's like where the name almost like even comes from.
Wait,
like,
I actually don't know.
Yeah, wait, is that why they're called a honeymoon?
Honeymoon?
They're like
trying we need to look this up.
I know, that's so fascinating. I've never even thought about that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that actually is true. But when you think about how the full moon makes the soil more moist and encourage germination and growth, that's like literally mind-blowing. That's how historically farming was done. Now, if you look now, people will say that is like a worthless thing to look into, but that's like a lot of things that now we
consider like deem like a little bit out there, but then if you really get into it, you're like, is it though? Like,
yeah, you're like, wait, this is
like,
what
is it though? Like,
I'm not one of those people that believes in like random or coincidences and stuff. So I'm always like looking for patterns and stuff, and I find that so fascinating.
I was talking with like I said, a friend who I did like an interview with last week, and something that I was like, I wonder how many women are going in for like, for example, like IVF treatments and like some of these they're I wonder, like, I don't know how to put it, but it's like how much of the issue lies with the men and like lack of testosterone for like spermatogenesis versus like women are the ones that are having the problems, and are you just like running into in vitro without like properly identifying like what the cause is of these like fertility issues? Like, have you noticed if there's like more female, I mean, again, would be completely anecdotal and you probably have some studies that can correlate, but like, have you noticed if it's like more males than female versus more females than males that seem like there's like these issues with fertility? And like, again, with males, it almost feels like it would be really easy for like lifestyle changes and corrections, and like people are spending like tens of thousands of dollars on some of these procedures when it could like, change.
No, I think you're 100% right. It's interesting of who, not to be like whose fault is
yeah, you don't want to like blame. You're not like we're not blaming, like we're saying like it's Jimmy's fault. Like, what is that?
No, you're right. But like, so one thing I always think about with like cancer, breast cancer and prostate cancer, like you can think of those as like equivalents to each other. And that's why they're like equal like rates, like kind of from a big picture, like men get prostate cancer, women get breast. But that totally makes sense because we are all living in the same environment and we're starting to like eat the same, we're exposed to like the same chemicals pretty much. So I think men and women both probably are having a lot of these issues. Also, like for the puberty thing, men are going through puberty earlier just as women are now too. I think the women a little bit more because I don't know, I feel like women get the short end of the stick. Like we're just like tossed around with like all these different like diets and starvation culture and like diet wars and stuff. I do feel like for some reason we're more like susceptible to like the perils of society than men for some reason.
I can see that. We should get into that exact topic because I think that's like one of our biggest. Okay, so the other day Alannah posted something on Instagram and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. I think I had a revelation. I was like, wow. So basically Ray Pete, may he rest in peace. We loved him dearly. What a beautiful blessing in the health world and the health space. Basically had an excerpt she posted from him that was talking about like the optimal puberty age, and given like the ideal environment, that age would be around like what, 25? Was that? It was like somewhere around 25. And we were basically talking about like estrogen's relation to this and like the early onset of aging. So give me I want to hear your spiel on
Well,
this.
I think that there was like this one guy found this, it was like on Twitter, and he found a community that it was normal for them to go through puberty at 25. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so interesting, because maybe that is in a pristine environment what we are supposed to experience.
In the, like the most optimal of settings, like where everything feels controlled and like, clean.
Yeah, and this will be your baby now. Like, we'll be able to test this now.
I know. I'm gonna like go move to a farm in the middle of nowhere with Rodrigo and my child and just be like, I like said that was like we're going somewhere off the grid. Like my pregnancy was in New York. That was bad enough. Like we gotta go somewhere and like reset the whole
reset the whole thing.
We gotta reset everything. Poor thing.
They already have high like, EMF
parasite cleanses when it's a toddler. Just kidding. But no, yeah, I think that's so interesting. And then you had this like diagram of this like pine cone, and we were you were basically like explaining that in a really stressed environment, the pine cone tends to mature like far earlier and blossom.
And that was from a podcast where they were talking about this. And if you stress up, that's like real. If you stress a pine cone, it'll harvest early, which is synonymous with, I mean, a woman, puberty. And even this is like confirmed in studies though, like even children that have gone through trauma and violence, it's linked to shorter lifespans because they age faster. And so everything is like, if you look at it from this like lens of like the life cycle, do you like a delayed puberty? I don't like the verbiage delayed puberty, because it makes it sound like
the normal. Like you've just kind of diverted from, and the new normal is like, ew, I hate using that word, the new normal, but you know what I'm saying? It's like the new adopted standard. Yeah.
Yes. And so like exactly, the onset of puberty has been shortened by a lot. I think in the 1860s it was like around 17 years old. Like it was like 16.6 years old you'd go through puberty in the 1860s. And then now it's like average is like 12, which is like you have to ask this question, like, why is it happening? Right. And it's kind of controversial, even to like even suggest that all these things are happening. But studies do show if you have higher levels of like estradiol, you'll experience like breast development early. It's like that budding.
I was the late bloomer. My gosh, I didn't get pregnant until I was like 17. I'm pretty sure it was like 17, and everybody around me like was fully developed, and I felt like the one that was like, what's wrong with me? Like I hadn't had a boyfriend. Like was such a like the epitome of a late bloomer.
That's so funny. I actually can't remember my date, but I do remember my twin brother, telling me I was fat. And like I was going through puberty. And I was like, this is like etched in my brain. We were in the kitchen and he was like, we were in a fight, and he's like, well, you're getting fat. And I was like, wow, this is harsh. Yeah, I do remember. And it was because
siblings pull out those weapons when they're younger, man. I'll tell you.
They do. And like I was no angel, so like no one has to like
I know, right?
Yeah, like no one has to be like, wow, that was it honestly it's whatever. But it was like a week where my metabolism slowed, my puberty, like I started to gain weight. I wasn't able to eat what I used to eat. And that mark of like estrogens increasing. But really I think the symbolic you're basically, there's stress on the person, and it's telling the organism, okay, it's time to reproduce. You're under stress. You want to reproduce before your life cycle's over. So, not only that is it linked to lower lifespan, it's also for women, it's linked to breast cancer, which is, I think some estimates are like over 23% higher increase in risk of breast cancer, which is a lot.
So the earlier the puberty, is that what you're saying? The correlation of like an earlier puberty is a 23% increased risk in breast cancer. That's fascinating. I wonder, like, what are some of the other like major markers that you guys see? Also, well, we'll start there. Like, what are some of the other like kind of like major markers for breast cancer? Because obviously, like, the numbers is just astounding now.
It's crazy. I know, and I got this question too, because on my like in my DMs, and someone was like, I know that was me, like I know I had early puberty, like what can I do? And I think there's a lot you can do, but for the menstrual cycle and for breast tissue, like estrogen and progesterone, the menstrual cycle is regulated by those two hormones. In the same way in the breast tissue, those are strongly impacted by those two hormones. So really like understanding those levels and making sure that they're at healthy levels at a bare minimum is very good to do. One of the problems is for like an early puberty, it's linked to high obesity, and the skin tissue can be a major source of estrogen. So, or the adipose tissue, and so that's not captured in like a blood test. So,
Right.
yeah. So
That's
there's
yeah,
limitations.
I actually have had some serious skin issues, which I correlated to like estrogen dominant. Well, I mean, again, this is like kind of jumping around, but it's like, estrogen and then like liver issues. And so I was like, okay, well, if I get my like liver under control and can kind of start this like almost like this cleansing process, or like just some of these flushes to almost like help. And I was also not metabolizing fats well at all. Fats and
really,
were just like really tough. And I was like, oh, this feels off.
I feel like you're so in tune with your body.
Oh man, but it's taken a long time, and it's taken some really bad health experiences to like figure it out. You're just like, it's a puzzle piece sometimes, and you're just trying to like fit it together to understand what the heck is going on.
Oh my gosh, I know, true. You have to really experiment.
You really do. And that's actually something else. Like, okay, what are some of like the biomarkers for women? Maybe like let's talk about women first, maybe like a routine blood panel that you feel like get like one misinterpreted a little bit, or two, like they're not necessarily looked at in the same, like with the same intensity as some of the other biomarkers. Because obviously, like I'm assuming you're a fan of the Dutch test, correct? Like, or no, give me your spiel. I'm curious.
I get asked about the Dutch a lot. I mean, we don't use it because, and I've talked about this before, is that there's a lot of emphasis on the 16 hydroxy versus the 12 hydroxy. And if someone's interested in figuring out if they're metabolizing estrogen properly, they should go look up how they come to the idea of what is a proper estrogen metabolism, because that's like heavily debated. And I love reading there's like this back and forth from these few doctors being like, you guys made up that estrogen metabolism has this like certain ratio, when really other literature shows like it's the opposite ratio. So I'm like always hesitant on changing my entire like supplement routine based off of the metabolism of estrogen. But I do think it can be helpful. Like some women like has like, I know anecdotally, like it's really helped them understand like how to take things and everything. But it's a little bit like cost prohibitive as well. So like it's like so expensive. So some women just want to do like more routine, like a basic, testosterone, cortisol, progesterone. But if anything, if you could get like if you really want like a comprehensive estrogen panel, like getting all the estrogens, like estrone, estriol, which we don't test on our basic at-home test because it's not available. But if you go into LabCorp or Quest, like understanding all the estrogens would be really cool.
There's a lot of different, I think like so many, we kind of just categorize it as, oh, estrogen, but it's like there's so many different categories of estrogen. And it's honestly the same with like, all the biomarkers. It can get like really broken down and a bit
but then that and thyroid, like, so me and my mom were talking like, okay, if we had to choose 3 things for any woman over 40 to take, it'd be thyroid, pregnenolone, and progesterone. If you had to choose 3 things, I would probably also take, like if I was older and had low T, like I'd probably take that. But thyroid's like life-changing for me. Like I feel like I've single-handedly sold out like this one thyroid brand that I use. It's always sold out now.
Wow, that's interesting. Like, because I mean, even like girls in their 20s, I mean, like we're just seeing crazy thyroid dysregulation. I've even had like a couple of bouts of it at some point where I'm like, ooh, there's something going on, again, with my, like, for example, my like my basal like metabolic temperature is probably just like so all over the place. Also, the blood panel for me like has been like kind of confusing because I'm like, oh, do I need like this like super extensive like in-depth testing, or am I able to like like get what I need and like glean what I need from like a normal blood panel? But then I don't always trust the interpretation like of a general practitioner, like, just something go into the doctors. And so I think like the like real confusion lies with like how you just exactly what you said. It's like how it's interpreted. It's like,
I mean, the interpretation is the most important part, I think, because if you don't get the right guidance, then you've set yourself on the path of like, wait, I'm taking this, why? And then you hear something else and you're like, wait, I shouldn't be taking that. It's rough. I think that's what we like I'm concerned about at Moment, at like my company, is like making sure people are feeling like their guidance is like the best ever. And like, is actually doing something. But you know, the less you need, the more healthy you are. So it's like if you're like, you know, don't really need much, like that's a luxury. It's amazing.
That's the goal, is to like not have to have like a 15 supplement stack.
Right.
Because your body's just like, that was actually how I felt in Peru. Like I was the healthiest I have ever been when I was living in Peru. Rodrigo and I lived in Peru for 3 months last year.
Really?
And I was just like on top of the world when it came to like my health. And again, it's a completely different world there in terms of like the food and the quality and like everything you get. And so I came back to the US and I had like I hit it hard. I was like, wow. And even like buying organic and like having these quality foods, like I still had them at my disposal, but there was just like still such a different, like just such a shift for me when I came back. I was just like, whoa. And
Really?
again, environmental and a lot of different things that factored into it. And, you know, just the sheer amount of tropical fruit I was eating on a daily basis in Peru. Like I was eating like noni and like all these crazy fruits that are like very anti-parasitic. So I think I just ended up like just like probably doing like a major cleanse while I was there, and just felt so great after.
I've always been interested on how the like coast and the cuisine is influenced by like if there's parasites and stuff. Like I kind of think I have this like theory that like the spicier the food, the more like parasites are in the food supply, as like a interaction between like self-medication.
I could see it. Like I was eating, and I still do, and like I'm curious your thought. I eat raw fish. Like I'm eating raw fish during pregnancy. Now, granted, it's really high quality. Like Rodrigo, like for example, like gets really, really high quality fish. I'm not eating certain fish. You will not catch me like eating like raw salmon from anywhere. Like you won't catch me eating like the fish that's like really high in tuna and mercury. But like corvina, for example, like I crave it. Like and in Japan, it's like so great for neonatal care. Like they're one of the better healthcare systems, I would say, in the world in terms of just like some of their practices, and like all of their women are eating fish raw. So I was like, you know, we all go off the same principle. And again, granted, like Japan's fish is probably a lot different than like some of the fish that we get here, but being really mindful.
Yeah, I think quality with food is always probably the most important.
In Peru, like there is just so much citrus consumed. Like it is such a yes, like for example, like all the ceviche is served in something called leche de tigre, and like tiger's milk is like what it translates to. And they like have a joke that it like just like boosts men's testosterone. So like some men in the morning will just take a shot of it. It's like hilarious. Like they just like, it's kind of like this thing, but it's got like ginger, and it's a lime base, and it's got like hondashi, and like you know, all these different like just really, it's a very citrusy sauce. And I wonder if that's like kind of the counterbalance. And then they have a lot of like tropical, like they just have like access to so much like fruit, and that is super anti-parasitic.
I wonder. I went there. I think I drank too many of those like margaritas to remember exactly. What I was doing.
The pisco sours, like the
pisco sours
in the top.
I literally have no recollection of the food. I just remember, I don't know.
You're like, it's some of the best food in the world, Alannah, and she doesn't remember.
I don't know. Like I know you're like bringing this. I'm like acting like I've never been. I'm like, oh really? There's citrus. I've been. I just don't really remember what I was doing.
She was in too deep with the piscos. Honestly, though, like no shame, the pisco sours there are pretty like spectacular.
Yeah, I had to get comfortable with like the raw egg white. Like people talk about raw eggs, and they don't realize like a lot of traditional cuisines use them all the time. Like the pisco sours have them like whipped in there, so you're like chugging raw egg all the time in the pisco sour. It's basically a protein shake.
I mean, it's basically a protein shake with a little bit of alcohol that also probably potentially kills like some parasites here and there. Like I don't know, I've heard there's like, I mean, like in small doses, like I feel like alcohol can be really cleansing, like certain forms. Like it's been used traditionally speaking. Now, I mean, we're not going out and having like absolute ragers where we can't wake up the next morning, but you know, there's a time. I feel like there's a time and place. Although Andrew Huberman, like just like I think shot everybody's like.
Really? Did he say something about it?
He had a whole podcast on alcohol, and alcohol is like the consumption of alcohol, and basically how there's just like, you know, not really a deemed like level for the pros never really outweigh the cons.
Yeah.
I think everybody after that episode was like,
Okay.
oh,
No, I'm actually kidding. I actually don't really drink. I've never been a big drinker. I don't know why. I don't have like
yeah,
I don't have like a desire, but I was just traveling and just joking. But that's
liver
interesting.
thing. It's probably, it's like when you're really in tune with your body, I feel like you just like start to like pick up on some of that stuff where you just like don't feel good and you're like, wow, this makes
Yeah. I've never been able to have like more than one drink. I'm delicate.
me too. I'm the same. Rodrigo is too. It's so funny. Like he like in his younger days, he was like a savage, and now if you get him to like drink 2 drinks, I'm just like, hey, we're gonna go now.
Yeah, I don't know. My mom's the same way. Like she literally had like one sip of champagne and she's like, I'm done. It's very hard for me to understand like the mindset of someone that's like alcoholic because I feel like I just can't, like my internal
Yeah,
compass can't be more.
right. No, it's so true. It's so true. Me and
I think
my friends all know. They're like, oh, she's not drinking tonight. And it was even before I was like pregnant. It's just because I was like, it's not even because I don't like want to be social. Because sometimes I like, oh, I want to be social, but I know how bad I'm gonna feel tomorrow. And so I'll get like Topo Chico and like a little fancy lime and be on my way. And most of the time I was like the designated driver in college. Like stuck with that job. That was
so funny. I think actually I remember reading that I mean there's implications for alcoholism with hormone disruption actually too. So that being kind of
they're like interesting, like in terms of hormone imbalance. Like I wonder what.
Yeah, I know I need to bring up the study, but I mean it makes sense when like every like these are really like the backbone of the organism and they're dictating how you look and how you feel and even like the shape of your body. So they're kind of just messengers of even your how you want to eat and stuff is can be.
I saw a graph the other day about how you carry additional weight, excess weight. Depends on like very much so like the hormone imbalance you're experiencing. Like, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like the backs of your arm indicates like one thing, the back of your like around your like hips and your butt indicates like another thing. Like again, and you can go into like gynoid versus android body types and stuff. But I was like, do you have like any insight on like the where you carry some of your
so if you look up Cushing syndrome, which is like solely caused by cortisol, they get fat pads on their back
of the neck. They get the hump neck. Yep.
Yeah, and I did like I actually kind of went viral on TikTok for talking about this was how you can get the location of the fat specifically linked to your high cortisol, which is crazy because Cushing's syndrome is only caused by cortisol. Like there's no other way.
It's a cortisol dysregulation disease.
Yeah, exactly. You can see like that is literally why that happens. It's just those extremes are always crazy to me. But yeah, like the shape of the body. They also have like thin legs and then like a round stomach. Like it's like distinctly where their like legs are leaner than like the rest of your body, which is such an but it does a lot of people like that look like that today. And so it's kind of hard to tell.
It's such a commonality now. Like it's such a common like disorder. I feel like that's one of the main things people are walking around with. That's fascinating. That's so fascinating.
But the fat pads on the back.
Fat pads on the back of the neck. Like, did that happen in older? Is it like predominantly like older generations, or are we starting to see it like with younger adults? Because I feel like it's a little bit harder to tell if it's like happening to like women in their 20s. Like, I feel like it maybe takes a longer time to develop like Cushing syndrome. Or what do you?
Oh, Cushing syndrome is so it can be like from injections, like they, doctors sometimes will use it as like a therapy, even though it's like, in my opinion, it's very anti-healing, like an anti-healing therapy. And I would never myself get a cortisol injection. Sometimes they'll overdo it. And then that you get those symptoms of like all those things. And then the other is a neuroendocrine tumor. So that'll like literally release cortisol from the tumor, which is absolutely crazy. You can get them removed though. And so you'll remove the origin of it. But yeah, and like when a tumor releases hormones, it's really crazy that it even does that. But that's when you see when cancer patients have like mood swings, that's directly from a tumor that's giving off hormones.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Crazy. Yeah. So, but yeah,
I feel like we could go into like that topic, like you're down such a rabbit hole alone on something like that. I actually have your mom's book sitting here. Look.
Oh my gosh, that is so sweet.
I'm so fascinated by her and everything you guys are doing. I'm like, it's just so interesting. It's so interesting. And I just like think that the whole thing that she's kind of breaking down is the fact that like genetics are not really necessarily like the end all be all. And
No, they're not. I mean, to this day, there's never been
like, oh, it's my genetics, and it's just like such a cop out. When it's like, well, there's all these epigenetic like switches that you can really control with environment. And yeah, you guys are doing the work of the Lord.
She's so cute. I love her. Yeah, we collab and stuff. She's adorable. She's like she's like a little doll, and she's like, you're adorable. But yeah, I mean, I want to collab more on like treatments and be a little like even more, take things to the next level on like getting patients well. I like on the nutrition side and the diet side, like experimenting with low PUFA, and low polyunsaturated fats. I don't feel like there's enough emphasis on that right now. I was texting her this weekend. I was like, we need to experiment on this. Because like what we were talking about, how the early puberty, that is directly linked to most of the time to estrogen. It can be, but PUFA can accelerate estrogen. And this like, has to do, my mom's never read Dr. Pete's work, honestly. She's never have, but
that's crazy to me because like she is such a like she has so many of the same philosophies. So that's like,
I know. It makes me happy. She just beats to her own drum.
Yeah, you guys are brilliant. I mean, that's like
no, yeah, she's but there's still like she's not in the weeds with like the nutrition stuff. She's more on the like, treatments and on the, I don't know, IVs and vitamin C and stuff, which can help a lot. But the nutrition thing, I feel like we can go beyond like eat ancestrally. But sometimes those things are complicated to someone to like understand what to change their diet and eating. Like they need to get really specific, but the doctors don't really know these things,
No, they get like 4 hours of nutrition school and MD school, right? Like it's like
I know, but then I think would the alternative really be better? Like if they got more, yeah, like
if they got government-based like nutrition education, it's kind of like a lose-lose either way.
Exactly.
So like, maybe someone go do their
no, 100%. We're on the same page because whenever someone brings that up, I'm like, really? Because I'd rather them do their own like learning and researching than have more like government-fed like nutrition of like eat your grains, like.
Sometimes like some of the stuff that I see like dietitians, I'm like, wow, we are on such different planets. Like this is crazy. Like I'm on such a different planet than you. And like I get it because I feel like sometimes I like really like I kind of get like annoyed with myself because I'm just like, man, I don't have like a particular credential that necessarily like I don't know, like just gives me a certain level of authority. But then at the same time, I'm like, I have like doctors, like I have like a couple doctor friends and like a couple of nurse friends that will come with like questions for me. And I'm like, you're asking me? Like, I'm like, that's actually kind of like the tables have turned. This is kind of weird. Like, but
I think that's
kind of cool because it's really off the cusp stuff that like, you can talk about. And then there's this like,
Yeah. Well, I'm always looking for, like, I want to hear different opposing views so that it really helps me like course correct and remind myself that my echo chamber doesn't represent the world, and we need to like be open to even challenging the things that we're so like immersed in, and it is kind of like it's like literally like a re like assessing situation when I hear like an opposing like dietitian view. But it also my thing is like a lot of them seem to have a very like uppity attitude, and I can't understand that because I know the best providers are the ones that have innocence about the like complexity of the body, and don't have all the answers and don't pretend to. So I think those people that are like asking you, like I just feel like that's an amazing, like what a cool sign that they are truly looking for answers in the truth.
Right. Well, and it's also like I tend to caveat a lot. I'm like, hey, listen, like I don't actually like know fully about this, but I will
know enough.
Like give you my 2 cents in my opinion, and it's like always subject to change. Somebody who does a great job at this is like Matt Blackburn has had like, for example, he's like another guy in the space.
Yeah.
Like, he's had like a lot of like really just like kind of like radical 180 shifts in like his viewpoints, but I appreciate the fact that like somebody is so open to really getting questioned or like really questioning their own views consistently. And yeah, it's so true. I feel like sometimes like with some of those degrees you can get a real sense of like this is how it is, and like those people without credentials questioning me like again, it's really something you see a lot in the healthcare space, like
And
just
totally, the credentialism, 100%. Well, doctors, they get their kind of like white coat, and they their ego, like they. I mean, there's literally, I've worked with doctors. My mom's a doctor. Like I have a telehealth company, and I
yeah,
love them. But sometimes I think like there's a lot of ego attached to it. They went through all this schooling, and they put in a lot of hours. So, but that doesn't always correlate to like knowing what to do.
right,
um,
right.
you know,
Yeah, and it probably is almost like if you as a doctor don't like know the answer to a question that's like maybe nutrition related or something like that, it's kind of just like a almost, I think sometimes it can be really easy in your mind to justify it as like it's probably not relevant or correlates to like said topic, and so like sometimes there's that differentiation. I don't know. Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah, I think my mom's done such a good job as like even though she's
a
65 and she's still like
savage.
innocent.
She was savage. She's savage.
She is like she's yeah, like 65 and been treating patients forever, and she's still like, oh, let's experiment with that. I want to try that. What did you say about that? Like, and I'm so much younger than her, and she doesn't like poo-poo anything. She's like
Right.
open to it. And I just feel like that kind of attitude is what we need in healthcare, not this like,
Amen.
yeah, like I don't know,
This
this
is like
weird.
this is like how it's gonna be. This is kind of like my way of the highway. We've seen that a lot the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's not a good sign of health either. It's like, why, that's not the person that's like calm and like, kind of,
Open for discussion.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
well balanced, rounded, individual in a lot of ways. No, it's so true. That's
yeah.
so
And I
true.
feel like what my mom's gift is more of like an aura enhancement. Like just by talking to her, you are given like transferred hope
You
and
feel empowered. Yeah,
yes,
that's why like hearing like your podcast and like reading the books and a lot of that stuff. I think that there's just like a completely different narrative that is put
yeah,
out there, and um it's a lot
yeah,
more in terms of like empowering, and you just feel like you can do it yourself. Like you,
right.
well, again, having the best care involved as well is amazing, but like you also have the ability to like implement a lot of these changes yourself, and that's really cool because I feel like that's such a like I feel like the Western care tends to like leave people out to dry like with certain things and only gives like 1 to 2 options, and yeah, it's so refreshing. It's so refreshing.
Yeah, and I feel like understanding something really just immediately improves its like
Yes.
function. It's
Right.
really weird. I
Understanding
swear the
your
day I
body.
learned about my metabolism, it improved. Like I
Right.
swear by this.
When you like understand, yeah, exactly how your body utilizes food, and like even your circadian rhythm, and like how your body temperature is supposed to like lower at night, or like and how it's supposed to be a certain degree in the morning, and like and some of these signs and symptoms are like cold hands, cold feet, and like when you start to understand that stuff, you're like, oh, I know what's going on with myself right now.
Mhm.
Like, I feel this certain way, and you're able to like pinpoint it, and it's such a process. Like you get there eventually, like you start to kind of get there, but it's such a learning curve, but it really makes a difference in your health, like as a whole.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it just continues to build on itself, and you start to realize that it's like the power's in your hands, and you can, overcome and heal, and your body knows what it's doing almost most of the time.
Yeah, the body knows how to autocorrect. What is that? Like is the there's like what the body keeps score, and then there's like biology of belief and all these books that are just like very much so. It'll half the time it's like a mental thing. Like I think you even mentioned it. It was like hormones are actually like a brain thing. Like, or maybe it wasn't you. It was like hormones
Yeah.
are actually like a condition of like the brain, like before the hormonal health. And like if you're really getting to the root cause of hormonal imbalances, it's actually like a brain imbalance first.
Well, your constant, I don't think people realize that your concentration of hormones in your brain for some hormones is like extremely high, much higher than in your blood. And that's why I'm like older people, like if you have Alzheimer's, like or some brain fog, you need to get your hormones checked, and you can like restore youthful levels, and it'll help your brain, your memory, because it's all like it's already there. And so then it decreases a lot when you age just by the aging process. And then it gets even worse when you like are eating weird and living strange,
Right.
and
Living
but you can like
sitting in a box like I am in New York City where you don't see the light of day half the year.
I hope you have your chicken lamp on, or
I do. I literally have my red light lamp. My dog sits in front of it. It's hilarious. Like my dog
really?
like gravitates in New York. She gravitates to the red light. She sits in front of it. I have it usually in the afternoons on after like 4 or 5. And yeah, she's like, I think it's like the one thing that are keeping her and I sane in the apartment.
That's so funny. I mean, that's my biggest like issue too with my health is I don't practice what I preach with like sunlight and stuff. Like because I'm inside, I have so many. I'm like stressed with emails and stuff, and I'm on my computer a lot, my phone. Like I work in marketing. Like how am I? It's so hard. I don't know. If someone has a good how do they handle it? I don't know because I feel like I don't get it must be disturbing something in me is not getting enough sunlight. I hope not though.
The one thing that like, well, again, Florida was a lot easier to get more sun. Florida was a lot easier to get more sun than here. But like the only thing that's helped me here is the fact that I have a dog and I have to take her for like 3 to 4 walks a day. And I like tend to try to like walk on the paths and like by the water that like actually has active sunlight. That's the only thing that has been able to keep me sane.
Great.
Like,
so now I have to get a dog so that
I know. So like a dog might be the solution for you.
You're suggesting I
Like,
get a
you have
puppy.
to. Like, 'cause if not, like you
Yeah,
have to
oh
take
God,
the dog
sorry.
out. Like, there's no.
I never thought about that. We need to think outside the box with like
Dogs are also great for your gut microbiome, guys. Like, I feel like my gut is really diversified with, especially with some of the things I see my dog eat. I'm like, oh, I for sure have a really diverse like health system. And then she comes into the bed with us after walking the streets in New York, and I'm just like,
oh,
it's not our. We're doing great. She's healthy by walking, giving us like
yeah.
great like microbiota like diversity. She's great. Highly recommend.
That's so
Okay,
funny. Yeah.
so my last question for you, actually 2 questions. One, I was gonna like briefly like just touch on the pap smear thing before we finish, and then 2, like also you have to give me a little bit more details on like the plans for Moment next year because I know you're like about it, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I know we had talked about that procedure that people are doing to like scrape off the cells, the HPV cells. But I remember I talked to my mom about this a while ago, and we both like were thinking about how it's so when you have like cancer and you get rid of the tumor, and I'm not saying this is the same thing, but like think about it like if you just remove the tumor, that doesn't change the fact that there is like something causing the cancer. Yeah, so it's like we said the DMs, I was like, it's a very superficial act, right? Like if you have a virus inside you, it's not localized to those
Not like
cells.
you can just scrape the virus and be like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
like, yeah, so I like think about it in that perspective. And I'm not saying bad or good, like whether you want to get rid of the cells or not, but I'm just saying it is not like you're suddenly cured. There is no like magic bullet. There's no magic cure for anything. So
totally.
that's the same. And then I think what I also brought up was just the nerve endings on your cervix and stuff.
Yeah,
So
no, it's so true. And the main procedure that like what we're seeing is called the LEEP procedure, right? It's LEEP. And it's usually after a couple of abnormal pap smears that you typically get it recommended after a couple of years. I'm not sure if there's like an age like at which it's typically recommended. I know a girl I was talking to had a couple of kids. She had 2 or 3 kids, and I think she went back in for like another pap smear and maybe had one in her previous years, and then like still present, and then that was like one of the times that they recommended it. But you sent me something super interesting. I can't remember. I have it right here. What was was it from like Ray Pete?
I think I need to go back and look where it's from, like what book it's from. I think it is from.
I'll read it because like for those of you who are like having this, because I had an abnormal pap, like that was like something that I had actually post Gardasil, but basically what this says is like many women with post or abnormal like pap smears, even with a biopsy showing the so-called carcinoma in situ, have received a normal like pap smear in just 2 months following with a diet that included 90 grams of protein, 300 milligrams of magnesium as chloride. And I think that's a kind of an interesting like caveat that it was chloride. 100,000 units of vitamin A, 400 units of vitamin E, 5 milligrams of folic acid, 100 milligrams of pantothenic, I can never say that word, acid, 100 milligrams of vitamin B, 100 milligrams of vitamin B6, and then and niacinamide, and then 500 milligrams of vitamin C with progesterone and thyroid as needed.
Yeah, and applied to your cervix as well.
Right. Oh yeah, applied to your cervix. And then like the liver should be eaten once a week because of the high vitamin B content, so on and so forth. And some of that you may even be able to get in your diet. Like if you just like kind of planned your diet appropriately, you wouldn't need to necessarily be going and taking like a ton of those supplements, but like it would be, something that you could essentially like, achieve with like cod liver oil and like vitamin A and beef liver for, vitamin A and vitamin, D and B vitamin, all the B vitamins. But yeah.
I remember I'm like 99% sure that is from one of his books that I grabbed, and I've given it to the doctors to experiment with. I know my mom also uses like ozone for viruses and stuff. So maybe, if you have a practitioner, you can insert the ozone vaginally. I know people recommend curcumin suppositories, but I don't think they work. I've talked to patients and I just don't think they work. I think they just destroy your clothes. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not a physician.
Like get some like diapers, not underwear.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, it'll get everywhere, and then
I don't know. That might not be the way.
Yeah, but I know there's like a bunch of studies because someone asked me about all these studies from the curcumin, and I've talked to patients that it hasn't worked. I don't know. Everyone's different, so maybe that will work for someone else. I'm not saying that, but I just know anecdotally. And then the ozone inserted vaginally, I heard does work. And then with that protocol, I'm really curious to see if when applying, you can apply the vitamin A very safely, and then the progesterone, depending on what brand you get, might be a little important to get the quality if it's going like in your vagina.
Moment health, ladies, Moment Health. That's probably a great transition into like what you guys are doing with Moment next year. Look at that. That was really good.
That was beautiful.
Like I've been doing this for a while. I haven't.
You're an expert, honestly. You're amazing. So this year we were available in California and Nevada, like to get your blood work and get it reviewed and get accurate solutions. And we're hopefully going to be in a lot more states next year, but hopefully we'll get like an answer on exactly where those states will be, like maybe by the end of today. And then we're going to keep growing. I mean, honestly, like we envision like every state at some point. It's just a matter of getting the right providers and being strategic with how everything goes.
No, definitely. I'll also link Moment Health's Instagram and like the website as well in the show notes, because the social is like one of the best like educational platforms that you can probably follow in terms of just like female hormone health, to be honest.
That literally means so much to me.
I've referenced back to it so many times. I'm just like, oh, I think Moment did a post on this. And it's basically like they take like basically blog like content and then they break it down into more like it's carousel type content on Instagram that you can just basically read. If you're like curious about a hormone or something like that, like you can just go and like swipe through the post. Like, wow,
I've tried to make it like I could understand, like my brain could understand. Like if my brain could understand it, that is the like I need it. That's what I try to cater to. Like like it should be a digestible so that you're like, oh, I kind of get it.
Yeah, totally. It's like a crash course for anybody who's like trying to understand their hormones better. So
Thank you. Yeah. And we're always like, if you have any topics that you'd like us to write on or
that's great. I have a couple I'll submit. I'll send your way later. I'm always just like in your DMs. And that was like actually why I had started with like the pap smear question, was because I had talked to 3 women all in the same situations in the last like it was like a couple weeks ago. I had talked to them all in the span of 1 week, and I myself had the same situation of like got like the abnormal after post this particular thing, and I was like,
if it makes you feel any better on the HPV thing, or like anyone or listening or whatever, I know Georgie, who's like a independent researcher but following Ray P really closely, has this really interesting study that says that because HPV is linked to cervical cancer, but he actually made this post, and I really don't want to misinterpret it, but it was like HPV is not the cause of cervical cancer. It's actually unopposed estrogen. So I can like send that to you as if you want like a little bit of peace of mind.
I almost wonder if it's like a protective, like sometimes
I mean, there's that whole camp that's like viruses are protective, actually.
Right? Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if that was like
that's like a whole like Thomas Cowan's work of like viruses aren't evil.
I have all of his books.
Me too. It's a great gateway to he's an OG, like health knowledge guy. He's amazing.
Yep.
His books have changed my perspective on viruses a lot. If I don't know if we don't know if they're all true, because I think there's a lot to be said that they can be immunosuppressive. When you think of like things like, I mean, Epstein-Barr and stuff, there's pretty clear like connections between these things. But when you're like, I think you can mix it with like the terrain of the body being resilient, and possibly really you need you really need a confluence of factors possibly for cancer to create this like storm. Maybe, there's I think it's good to take in these different viewpoints and kind of navigate it, because they're all theories,
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's so interesting. Oh man, I feel like you and I could probably talk for hours.
We could. You need to when you guys visit California.
Yes, I know. Rodrigo and I have a feeling we'll probably be out there sooner rather than later, because like some people that he's like working with more recently are based out of LA. So I was like, I wonder if I can
a restaurant in LA, maybe? Did I hear that?
I don't know. That might be a great. I'll drop a line. I heard like Rodrigo and I have been like so curious like what the next like couple of years are gonna hold for us. Like we have no idea. Like the reality is like we have like our little home base in Florida, but we're like, we have no idea where we're gonna end.
That's the fun of it, I think.
Exactly. Well, yeah, we'll definitely be out there sooner rather than later, and I will absolutely be bringing my little chicken nugget in tow once I have it. Be like, Alannah, this is the baby.
Wait, do you know what the sex is? Sorry.
We're waiting. Okay. Both my mom and Rodrigo's mom both waited for all of their kids, like for like the sex to be revealed during the birth. And so Rodrigo and I were like, there's so many times where we just like ruin surprises in life. Like, let's just like wait it out and see.
Love that.
So many people have like inclinations it's a boy. My mom thinks it's a girl. I have no idea.
More likely it's a girl, just by the ratios of the world, right? There's more women than men.
More women than men, so maybe
I could see you with a girl. Let me call it.
Wants to be a girl dad. You called it on the show.
I think it's a girl. Like, well, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I've been right about a lot of things.
My mom thinks it's a girl as well. And some people like looked at my ultrasound photo of like just the face and was like, yeah, it's a boy. I was like, really? Really? You're really that sure? Like you can call it from here. Just looking at the facial profile. I was like, that's a bold statement.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
I honestly think it's a girl as well. And Rodrigo really wants a girl. So, and I think it's so cute that he wants a girl. He wants a little girly pop. Like
that is adorable.
Every time he talks about it, I'm just like, oh, speak of the devil. No. Speak of the devil. Your husband's making a guest appearance. It's been real.
Yes, it has. Thank you.
My dog's been crazy. She's like, Dad's home.
Oh, so cute.
Well, I'll definitely send you a note about some more additional additions to the show links, and anything that you have insight wise would be super epic. And yeah, this was really good. I'm sure we'll do a part 2 here soon.
Yeah, I'm happy just to jump on, share some whatever.
Share some crazy studies. Yeah, that's exactly what we need from you. That's exactly what I need. And in the meanwhile, I'll be in your DMs.
No, totally. And I'm so excited for you. I'm so excited. Keep me updated on the journey and what everything happens. And I'm sure it'll go great. Are you going to do like a home birth, like a doula or something?
Yeah, that's like, I've been trying to figure it out. I found a birth center that's like, it's like a little bit further. Like we had, unfortunately, like the birth center in my area closed, like the main one. So there's one that's like a little further, but they don't do home births. Like usually they have midwives that'll go but they don't go after a certain point home birth. So basically I'm trying to figure out if I like just hire a midwife or if I am gonna like just go to the birthing center like when the time comes. So I'm moving forward with the birthing center though for now. So like because they're like great. They're really great. So
Can Rodrigo set me up with someone? Like what?
sure, we'll be out in LA at some point. I'm sure we could absolutely.
I'll move. It's fine.
You could go to New York, although you won't love the.
I can't with the high EMFs. I think I'd be like,
I'm dying. I like try to leave the city every like couple days.
yeah, you're always like, I feel like out and about.
I
Honestly.
am. It's so true. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, this has been so fun, dude. I'm gonna end the recording now. Hey guys, thanks again for listening. Alannah and I could probably go on all day and all night talking, which is so much fun. I'm gonna link her URLs in the show notes, as well as her Instagram and their TikTok, as well as some of her mom's work and the books that they have in their resources and some of the other stuff that we mentioned. So if you guys like this episode, please share it with a friend who could utilize this information in their own lives. And thanks again for listening.